Hello everyone, and welcome to Content, Week. And to be not joined alone, I, the Week, will be joined with the content. Say hello, Mr. BBRAFF.
Why, hello there.
So,
Content Week Part 2, though. It's not just normal Content Week.
sure, let's go with that. The week is, I'm content with this week, that is for sure. And today, the two of us will be looking at someone special. So we will be going through each of the coaches in the special conference, which is to say the Ting division and the Chi division in draft order, and looking at the game and the specific play that we thought was their best in the season. Not to say this is objectively the best possible one, but to simply say that this is one that stood out to us when we were looking through their games and that we wanted to appreciate them for. And this has been a really good season. No players dropped this season, which is awesome. That hasn't happened in my entire time with the VBL. So I'm very glad to see that coming. And, we're here to appreciate someone special.
Indeed. Yeah, like Electric said, it's not all ways maybe the best play, because that, again, is subjective, but I think these are some pretty nice plays that everybody can appreciate for what they are.
For sure. So the first coach we're looking at here is Ryan O'Giggs and the Dublin Dondozos. And they had a very strong team. And let's just get into the game.
Yeah. I don't know what speed you're going at.
Fast. I always default to fast. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I default to faster videos and hyper fast for personal watching.
I cannot follow during hyperfast.
I hear some people watch at like normal speed for singles, and that is crazy to me. Okay.
No, that's crazy. Singles is singles. Because things weren't looking great for Ryan O'Giggs after the start of this battle.
No, it was a very slow game start, but they did take advantage of positioning well, and then this turn they knew their opponent was locked into Garchomp with Outrage, which, for context, Outrage randomly targets, so you don't have any control over where it's targeting. So that has a very strong chance. It's a coin flip to either burn their attack completely into Tatsugiri, or to hit it into Dondozo, with which +2 defense is not taking it particularly much damage from it, as well as that they are going to be likely to want to target down the Annihilate, which does have that boosted Rage Fist up. So being able to burn 2 attacks into Tatsugiri there is very impactful. And then they remove that Gengar because Garchomp, I believe, is still locked in. I don't think missing Outrage unlocks it, though I know hitting into an immunity does. But I'm not perfectly sure on it. But, functionally having Garchomp locked in like you had a Gothitelle on the field, being able to remove Gengar, as well as most likely being able to 2-KO any Pokemon coming in the back there. I believe Orthworm would take the 2-KO, and then they'd be able to cover there. They made a very safe play when they were in a disadvantaged position to really pull themselves out in front, which was very, very solid. Being able to position to not only preserve a fairly healthy, already decently Rage Fist boosted Annihilate, but also take advantage of their Dondozo was what really sealed in the rest of this game. So I'll just resume to show it playing out.
I don't really have anything to add. You just summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, no, I was right. The Garchomp was still locked into Outrage.
Yeah.
I know game mechanics.
Does hitting into like a fairy type actually make it unlock? I don't think I realized that. I thought it was just like once you used it enough and to confuse yourself.
No. If it hits into a fairy type, you unlock. Shinju as well.
Oh.
So yeah, being able to position to clean up with the Dozo, and short of Dozo being able to clear up with Annihilate instead, is definitely very, very strong. They were pressured to Outrage with their Garchomp there. Again, because otherwise Earthquaking could have damaged Sandy Shocks, and clicking a non-stab move isn't going to be doing much Dondozo. And then even if the Dondozo had been broken through, they would have still had Tatsugiri and Annihilate to come through from the back, which just a very, preparing what was a very rough early game for a very safe and consistent late game is, identifying those outs and the right turn to make those plays is a big part of how you can finish with these more consistent and balanced offense to style structures.
Exactly, because that one switch, basically, it shifted the momentum on that one turn. It was a good call, and it helped position themselves for the late game.
Yeah, and they
made two things
sure,
you want to do.
Yeah, they made sure to execute all of the correct plays out from there, because that switch was incredible, and then also targeting down the Gengar proved to be exactly right, because as we saw, Outrage was bouncing off of Dondozo, and that meant that there was really only the one Pokemon on the back in Sandy Shocks that could have particularly threatened them. So that was very, very, very well played. So next coach we move on is Sly and his Seattle Swallows. I don't actually remember the team name of everyone, but I will do my best.
Yeah.
And I think I remember this game. So I think this was taking advantage of a Pokemon that was under-tiered, but had a very high top-end usage. So the turn 1 definitely was not the nicest looking for Mr. Sly, as we've seen him lose one of his strongest Pokemon there to a double up, as well as some chip on his other support mon. But here he takes advantage of Encore to guarantee that the Iron Treads isn't going to be able to threaten a KO into the Chi-Yu, so there would need to have been, I think most likely, a Terra Blast from Iron Moth. I don't think Iron Moth gets any coverage move that would be able to hit Chi-Yu without Terra, so in doing that, gets Strudel in a position where they can take out the two fast offensive pieces that are the main threats in there, and then following up that, sacking off the Strudel to get a paid switch into a one to be able to clean up that end game.
Sly loves his Encore, and
it turns out Encore is broken.
Which we've seen many times in draft, and yet people still don't use it all the time.
Well, I don't think it works all the time. We saw, things aside, we saw my game against Purple Rain where he just encored me into a move I wanted to be using anyways, which is,
True.
The other side of Encore, but not the most common side of Encore, I think. So, yeah. Ultimately, Sly positioned to really deny a lot of agency out of Goose, and punish Goose going for a fairly reasonable move in that Ice Spinner into Salamence. Being able to take advantage of having lost one of your major offensive as well as support pieces without having gained the advantage of say a Tailwind setup is a really good pivot. Being able to get yourself back on the board after a rough early loss is pretty significant. And we saw the Super Fang from the Strudel as well paying off with putting Iron Moth in range, especially after the Alive 4 pit. So yeah,
100%.
A very, very consistently played game to Sly. Now we come here to Foreign.
This one was so spicy.
This was a very caliente play, and this is something that we saw Foreign doing a lot. Is that Foreign went in Foreign's team? I cannot remember the team name off the top of my head. I should put it on the slides.
Milwaukee Bewares.
The Milwaukee Bewares.
That's right. That one.
So the Foreign went on a very hard Trick Room team.
The other,
and did a lot in terms of bringing comps designed and taking moves that wouldn't necessarily be optimal if not for the fact that you were expecting your opponent to bring the prep designed to hard counter you setting Trick Room. So if we look here at this game,
the screenshot's from the other POV on the slide, but
is it?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that kind of adds to the unexpectedness.
Okay, that's my dumb. It shouldn't have been from the other POV.
Well, that's.
I have it in the right POV in the thing.
Like I said, I think that enhances it.
Okay.
So you can see
we see Imprison Trick Room, one of the annoying counters to the thing, and we actually see something commonly used as a counter to Trick Room itself in Whirlwind / otherwise phasing, which is one priority bracket higher than Trick Room, being used here to enable Trick Room by countering Imprison and committing that turn 1. Not blundering a fake out into the Iron Bundle, even though you see its booster energy, therefore it has the thing, and being concerned, he's like, okay, the goal here is to set up Trick Room, so I'll make this Whirlwind play, which is normally used to counter Trick Room, to instead enable Trick Room by removing the Imprison Pokemon, and that play executes brilliantly well. It gets the burn off on Hariyama with no damage, gets Trick Room off with Arangaroo. And I don't think they were realistically at risk in either slot from Iron Bundle, especially because it wound up being speed boosting. So just a cool game plan and using the right tech options to execute it perfectly. I believe in this matchup we also saw that there was Whirlwind on Copperaja, as well as we've seen that employed a few other times as well to counter sticky Imprison situations. Just
totally. And like before this, I wonder. I don't think there's any way Canner would have been prepared for that. Like, I personally am guessing most people didn't even know that Hariyama and Copperaja got Trick Room. I mean, not Trick Room, Whirlwind. Yeah.
I definitely knew that both of them got Whirlwind because they used it a lot in singles, but especially got Hariyama. Hariyama definitely is someone I associate with phasing, but being able to see it is very cool. And then just from there, takes advantage of said Trick Room to just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to progressively delete your entire team. We see the Iron Bundle was not even close to getting a KO into that Hariyama, and then, even with a lot of offense coming out from the other side, it's like, oh, okay, great, thank you for giving me a switch into Torkoal.
That's always what it is when you play Torkoal. Because you have to kill the threat, but then it brings in a worse threat. Out of the frying pan into the fire when playing against Trick Room and Torkoal.
Yeah, hard Trick Room is very, very sticky.
Yeah, I lost to it at Milwaukee. Same scenario, just they got in Torkoal and would destroy me.
Well, Trick Room is very insidious. Like we saw that even in my own season, which I'll be covering in the other video I'm doing, Let's Get Physical. I actually don't know whether that will be one of the ones that Daddy picks, but at least theoretically. Hard Trick Room, being able to get up that Trick Room meant that they were just able to concatenate on step after step. Each turn, Kano could only make plays to stall it out, and was never really in the position to make plays to prevent it going up or to prevent kills coming out. Damage into Hariyama was pretty important because otherwise Hariyama was going to KO through their whole team, and then damage into Arangaroo was important because then they wouldn't get Trick Room up. But at this point, after this game, we don't even know if there was Mimikyu in the back to have even better odds at getting that secondary Trick Room up, or whether it was another abuser like Brute Bonnet or Copperaja, or even using Brute Bonnet to just get another attack off with Torkoal, because you don't even necessarily need the extra Trick Room if you are using redirection to potentially get those extra turns off. So definitely a very strong game from Foreign and the Milwaukee Bears. So then we have Steve Monty Scott and their Waterloo Wormadams. So Steve. So we see a very disrespectful game here from Steve, as we saw a lot towards the end of the season. The Scarf Terror Blast and the Covert Cloak with the Volt Switch there to get through the support option in Weavile. I think more conceptually to cover beat up, and then Dondozo, Tatsugiri removed, Dondozo becomes a bit less of a threat, but actually Dondozo can still be very scary even without Tatsugiri on the field. So how do you stop Dondozo or Annihilate from doing anything? Well, that's pretty simple. You just ignore them. You don't need to pay attention to them. Why are they there? What you doing in my swamp? So they're Leech Seed to prevent Annihilate from getting any defensive boosts, and Shellos to prevent Dondozo from doing anything. And would you look at that? There's a funny counter on the Shellos, so that the Annihilate winds up killing itself before it kills anything else. Just identifying that end game in prep and being able to execute it was something that we saw a lot from Steve this season, having very clear end games in prep and positioning so as to take advantage of them. We see that very impactful turn 1 Terror. We saw the Volt Switch to be able to get in that pivot and playing around the Sash, but then also theoretically being able to get damage into the Annihilate, but preferring to double into a potential Sash with the idea that the Annihilate might be what's it called? You don't want to boost up that Rage Fist and make it more difficult for Shellos to get into. And then, Tropius being able to come in because already kill Weavile, Hydreigon staying in to get through that Tatsugiri, and then Shellos pivoting in just to end the game. It was a very, very consistent game.
Part of the reason I chose this one is also because it's kind of is a good summary of Steve's season and Steve in general. Just Shellos. He's able to use it a lot. It came a lot, and although you might not think of it how many points did it cost? It cost 1 point.
Yeah.
And he managed to bring it how many times? Here, I want to see how many times he brought it. But it was a lot.
I think it was 3 weeks, but it might have been more.
3 weeks.
My gut reaction says 3 weeks, and have you ever randomly thought something and it was slightly off? That's impossible. I think it was the Chi division. No, the Chi division was the one that I did, so it must have been the Ting division.
It's Ting division. I don't know where the stats are, though.
On the Ting division page. Shellos, eight games, which is 3 series. Sorry, when I said 3 games, I meant 3 weeks.
Yeah. But still, that's a lot more than most one-pointers.
That is certainly more than most one-pointers. It had a super consistent endgame that it played towards, which was the main thing. That's certainly more than Glaceon or Riverfruit came. And Shellos was really good at getting, finishing up series, which is absolutely what it did here. And Tropius, I think, is probably even more notable because I think that came to 4 or 5 weeks, and most of those weeks, it wound up proving to be a really consistent defensive option as well. Being able to shut down a lot of opposing game plans through Leech Seed was very, very solid, and Grass Knot getting the extra boost into Dondozo because of its weight is also quite good. So yeah, very, very well played game there from Steve.
Able to beat Annihilate and Dondozo, the 2 high-pointed pillars of Scarlet Violet VGC so far, with Tropius and Shellos.
Exactly. So they were, it wasn't really a fair fight, but it is what it is. So then we've got LS and the Flippin' Flamingos in this very powerful series, where we see them pivoting game plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we start with the Indeedee Rouge, and the Indeedee basically just gets sacked to set up Trick Room, and then they were like, conveniently, they have made it so that their Sizzle is no longer immune to Acid Spray, and no longer resists Expanding Force. So what if I simply made it so that their Sizzle took more damage, and using a very bulky Electric for the support option of Fake Tears on a stick, just deletes the opposing counter to Expanding Force.
totally. I mean, it's just better fake tiers, except it can't steal types.
Yeah, and then just clears out the game, stab Thunderbolt, tear it into Aura Sphere. It's like, okay, great, Ice Spinner. Okay, well, the Acro was super effective and still didn't do much. It's like, okay, well, you got that Aqua Jet, but I still have the Eel, which beats the Amon, and then I also have a funny Flutter Mane. So
like the Shellos and Tropius from before, it's a mon that isn't generally seen as super powerful or expected with the tiny Eel, although
we did see a lot of Eel this season.
Quite a lot, yeah.
I mean, Eel and Big Eel they both have just such a nonsensical bevy of moves, along with no weaknesses, and then the ability to Terra so that it can check a lot of stabs. And Acid Spray is such a good utility move. Thunderbolt's such a good utility move, and then we also seen like more offensive setup sets. But yeah, just an absolutely crazy mon, and being able to take advantage of your opponent's Terra to delete their best check to the mon that you were running. So certainly a very well played game there from LS, and a very good play on that turn. So then we've got Heaven. Heaven 64 and the Reggie Labs. I almost said French Villages. I remember that it changed. This was just such a crazy late game thing. This was the thing that made me glad I was in the physical conference and not the special conference. Heaven just was very consistent this season at figuring out game states. Had just an incredibly good game sense. So we see here this pivot into Iron Moth and the punishing thing. Oh, okay. Maybe in this situation, my Iron Jugulus is, I've got a fast mon and they've got a slow mon. I should switch up my game plan entirely from this Trick Room, more offensive game plan that I was starting with to actually, let's run a fully defensive, bulky game plan. Let's, focus on pivoting, get the Intimidates off, be getting the Snarls off, and wearing my opponent down over time, rather than taking advantage of the shorter number of turns that Trick Room normally allows. And having that game sense and switching that game plan up put Heaven in such a strong situation, and then they were still here going through the motions and mitigating out the opportunities their opponent was getting to get through their major threats, because they're like, okay, well, now I have to stall out the Tailwind. I stall out Trick Room, now I have to stall out Tailwind immediately after, because they're pivoting to a faster mode, and just switching back and forth so flexibly and being able to get so much value out of it was something that I just thought was very impressive, and it was something that Goose really struggled to play through.
And Juice just wasn't doing any damage. That's the thing.
Or no damage, right?
Because
Goose removed the Funny Crook. Goose removed the thing, but then it was just Goose wasn't able to remove the right Pokemon because he made Heaven was making all the right sacks, right? Goose sacked Crook at the right time. Goose sacked Iron Thorns at the right time, and then ultimately, I think this game wound up.
Oh, Goose ended up winning this game.
Yeah, this game wound up narrowly winning in Goose's favor, but this was such a bad matchup for Heaven, and Heaven almost entirely played himself out of the hole, and I think it ultimately wound up coming down to the Rock Blast miss into Appleton, and having such your opponent basically bring the exact counter team to the team the comp that you were bringing is normally just absolutely game ending, but Heaven played it to an incredibly close game, and I think without the hacks would most likely have won, and that is crazy.
I know
you can make good plays in losing games too.
I know disheartening can be when you realize that what they have is just not what you were ready for, but Heaven almost got
won the series as well,
and yeah.
Just a very, very well played game. All right, and now we get to one of the worst players in the league. You all know him, you all hate him. It's Daddy.
According to StatMax, the worst player in the league.
The worst player in the league. Sorry, not the worst player in the league. The worst player in the league.
worst player.
The worst player in the league. I still think it's as an equally funny way to refer to them as than Daddy, but you know. So I don't. Sorry, let me just. Okay, it was the turn 1 hard call with the Terra. Okay. Oh no, not Encore. Not the offensive beat up. Okay. Oh, and taking advantage of that, the fact that Weavile is not particularly. Oh my gosh, the Weavile's red card.
Yeah. So it got a little bit out of hand, but
this game is absolutely getting out of hand.
Ending it okay.
I think a British person would probably describe it as a bit out of pocket. Wouldn't you, Gaffer? Wild Charger doing 30%. Jolly good show, it's been. The Icy Wind. Man, it would be really funny if Iron Valiant was a good Pokemon.
Yeah, I kind of have to get on that. Or I think it's good. I just think it's a lot harder to use than it seems unless you just want offensive Terra Fairy bot, which I kind of tried to do and didn't really work.
Yeah, I thought it was not a particularly great offensive Terra Fairy bot or Terra Fighting bot because it's very frail and its speed is pretty conditional. If you want the booster energy, then you're not running an offensive item, and then you're not really taking a good advantage of that offensive thing. But then otherwise, it's very difficult to position.
Yeah, I think Daddy's able to use it pretty well this season.
Well, I think both of you used it fine.
I'm not sure about me, but
you know, you made it to just short of that that play thing. Considering that how much I've been criticized. I don't know. I think it just has a very high bar, and I'm not sure how high the ceiling is. High skill floor, but I don't think it has a particularly high skill ceiling. But it's pretty reasonable, and both of you done interesting things with it.
I think it seems a lot better on paper.
I mean, on paper, my judgment of it was, wow, this guy's kind of terrible.
I mean, I was just like infatuated by fairy fighting, fast, both physical and special, the move pool. I thought I could solve the bulk problem with mouse hold, but I can't.
In some positions you did, but yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you could just have solved the bulk problem with Terra.
Yeah.
And as we saw this game, and just kind of irrevocably putting themselves on the front foot by really just kind of removing Annihilate from consideration. I think that was the main thing that came out of the game, and it definitely wound up working in Daddy's favor. So then we have Skidoot. Skidoot.
Oh, yeah, this is the one I messaged you about.
I don't remember you messaging me. So like a specific thing. Oh, that didn't work because of RNG?
Because it didn't actually work.
Oh no! No! Oh, you hate to see that.
It was so nice.
That was very, very strong. Oh, God, not the Iron Head as well. Not healing up the opposing Orthworm as well. Oh no.
Yeah.
And then do we see a Protect and Body Press from the Orthworm? Oh no, just an Iron Head. Not even a Heavy Slam. Yeah, but that is taking a long time to get through.
And the Bulldoze might have. I'm not sure if they forgot about the Great Theater.
I think it was mostly to make the Garchomp slower than Tauros.
Okay.
But yeah, then the Garchomp ultimately revealing Terra Steel, which I think wasn't shocking when we saw the Iron Head.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately just missing several Terra Blasts into Sandvale is very, very rough. And that would have. We saw how much damage Garchomp got. We saw how much value Garchomp got offensively. And honestly, that disabling the Orthworm there was a pretty effective play.
That's what was able to win them in the end.
Come on, Mutz. You can do it. You're like, you can't, but I believe in you. Oh, it does win in the end? Awesome.
Yeah. Basically, Screamtail and Palafin are both very good Pokemon.
You know what? I don't know about this Palafin claim, but Screamtail is very good. Protect, Disable, and Dazzle game. Oh yeah, the Jet Punch there. That's pretty strong. And then breaking all form here just seems surprising to me. Disabling Body Press to set up in the alternative. That is strong. Do we see an Iron Defense? Oh, we don't see an Iron Defense. I kind of expect to see an Iron Defense from the all form to try and stall out the Disable. Yeah, that, but a previous turn, so that he didn't get to a Cure by Wave Crash. But ultimately, Paluthen's a good Pokemon, it turns out.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have even. But the point is, it's about the play. And if they hadn't missed that initial Terra Blast, then it wouldn't have even gotten that close at the end.
Yeah, for sure. They would have locked up. I mean, even if they had hit it into a Terra Steel on that turn, then the Garchomp wouldn't have been able to get, I think it was 2 extra Earthquakes off. Sorry, an Iron Head and an Earthquake. No. An Iron Head and 2 Earthquakes. So they got a lot more value out of plays that went to play to take advantage of. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out, but that definitely, you know, that super strong play turn 1, and then also still having a consistent game plan at the back to cover for, oh, what if they Terra, oh, if Sandvale, all of the variables, they were still able to cover in the long game, even if in the short game that specific play didn't work out. So that is really good, a really good game plan, and being able to adapt back from that was really cool. Now we see Joseph Jokestar, and the Dua Lipa's microphones. And then beyond that we have, okay, maybe a bit of a repeating character, but so let's look at how, okay, so the Trick Room goes up, and then we play around the Trick Room. Okay, Hariyama just absolutely eats. Hariyama continues to eat. Well, Miss Magus gets Whirlwinded out, so they played around the Whirlwind because they'd seen it at this point. The Arcanine's Flash Fire because... Oh, yes, no, I remember this series.
It's Torkoal.
Yeah, it's Unnerve Haxorus as well. To cover, I think, Ability Shield, Mimikyu. Yeah, so they removed the Brute Bonnet. I think, was this game 3? Game 2? Game 1? Game 2. I think they'd identified the Torkoal moveset at this point. So they're just playing to... they're like, okay, well, I have a Inevitability on my side. Arcanine is going to be able to wall this Torkoal because it is Earth Power, Eruption, Flamethrower, and Protect, or it might have been Heat Wave. And if I am able to remove the other 3 Pokemon, then even if Haxorus dies, then I will be able to win. So we see the Haxorus, you know, does manage to survive, and it would have gotten a Protect off. And you know, that is just, you know, a well executed finisher. So yeah.
The Arcanine with the Terra flying and Flash Fire, putting it in perfect position to be immune to all of Torkoal.
Exactly, and identifying what the out is and playing towards that late game, hedging around Haxorus, taking RNG. That is a very consistent late game, even though I think the Arcanine would have been spamming Snarl, because I think it was Wisp and Protect in the other 2 slots. And you know, sometimes that is just what it comes down to. And here we see Vigo Centris. Speaking of identifying consistent endgames, Pygo does incredibly well to identify and position towards a consistent endgame here. So, very scary. Shift Gear at lead, as well as blundering the Gigaton Hammer. Always intimidating to see, but we see them start to take through the Iron Bundle. I think this is a game 1. No, this is a game 2. Okay, I'm not sure if they knew whether the bundle was Sash, but yeah, the Phalanx also turns out to be Sash, and goes for the Rock Slide here, which hedges around to Protect on the Iron Bundle and still gets some damage into Toxtricity. We see the extra Protect off here. I think there was a reason, but I forgot what it was. The Trailblaze for extra speed there, and you know, they remove the Toxtricity, and then they're like, okay, well, I just need to figure out what their last Pokemon on the back are, and then I am able to win the game. We see the Tinkaton living this hit here, getting the Berry back off, and removing the Slitherwing. because, you know, it might have had something wrong, and being like, okay, cool, Tinglu wins now. There's nothing that my opponent can do. Nothing they have is going to be able to consistently break through it, even if this Lycanroc was locked into Stone Edge. The Terra Poison is able to seal up the game from there. And that is a very strong position to find yourself in. Just able to disregard the 2 remaining Pokemon.
I mean, the last I missed, there's just nothing Canner can do to Tinglu.
For sure.
It'll just keep stinging and keep slewing.
Because indeed he's not threatening, except once you're Terra Poisoned. Toadscool is only ever delaying the inevitable, so it was all about removing that Slitherwing if it theoretically had coverage, and then removing that Toxtricity because it was set up. And that wound up being, you know, just that super consistent out. And honestly, I feel like I was occasionally in Canor's Think with the setup Toxtricity and hoping to finish off, and then my opponent having something that I just could not break through ultimately once Tox went down. So yeah, very, very consistently played endgame, and identifying those consistent endgames in prep and then executing them in practice is what really wins you series. This next play, was repeated a couple times from Puffin and the Phoenix Suns. Just the absolute nonsense, the absolute menace. Imprisoning the opposing in prison, and then just yeah, okay. Let me Misty Terrain on their Sleep Powder. Yeah. Okay. Well, you whirlwinded me out. Well, that's just too bad, because that's also the turn you switched in Oranguru, so you're unable to set up that turn. So I get to take advantage of an extra turn to mitigate your damage output. You know, this absolutely juiced Taurus, you know, only at risk as a result of that special defense drop from that position there, and then pivoting in on with the Skeledirge, I think sacking it to memory, yeah. But knowing then that they can bring in the Grimmsnarl, and the Grimmsnarl's access to Fake Out is going to be able to seal them up that late game. Oh yeah, I feel we even saw that Stone Edge. It's just, okay, my opponent is going to be counterplaying some parts of my counterplay. I just need to counterplay the bits of their counterplay so that we can counterplay the counterplay. And that is just very funny to watch, to be honest.
And then the Terrifier at the end just seals it up.
Absolutely. Closes out a game that was very like preserving that Terror straight to the end game.
It was very up and down.
It was about just, you know, whichever play of the Trick Room or Imprison that it went for, or potentially even Hyper Voice, because it was also imprisoning Hyper Voice from Oranguru, though we wound up seeing that it was Psychic, not Hyper Voice. And the Psycho Helmet was probably Trick Room in their last slot to cover for opposing Trick Room and to be able to set Trick Room itself. But having that control and limiting what your opponent can do, knowing what outs your opponent can make, like by imprisoning Hyper Voice, you make it very unlikely, as well as Terra Blast, that Grimmsnarl is getting threatened, as well as imprisoning Imprison and then imprisoning Trick Room, all wound up being able to pay dividends. And then we have Canor, and Canor. This game, Canor Red Goose like a book. We just see just some absolute, you know, A-grade nonsense of, okay, you know, Canor's like, okay, I don't want to do this, so we see, you know, Goose threatens the Spore, and it's like, okay, well, they're pretty likely to double into the Toadscool this turn, and they're like, actually, now this Indeedee set up, they're pretty likely to actually start trying to target down the Indeedee, so we go for Rage Powder, and just really limiting the, you know, impact of the plays that Goose is making.
Yeah, I mean, the Toadscool, it's always a game sometimes, whether to protect or redirect, and Kenner called it correctly both times, and the Indeedee is just in position to win.
Yeah, led the Indeedee, it just sat there, it never got hit, and it just kept doing damage, which is just something that you really love to see if you're supporting Canor. That was, you know, they made all of the right calls, and they had the right Toad School set as well, which was definitely played its part in that game. And just, seeing that come out, and then seeing that play, and then and just kind of sitting there being like, well, all my moves don't work. Very powerful. Playing in a very offensive, fast-paced team like that defensively, successfully, very, very cool. So yeah, Canor, James, and the Cincy Mincies. Was this?
Just seeing.
No, okay. Sorry, I was like trying to figure out.
I'm trying to see if this set clinched playoffs for James, and it looks like it did.
Yeah, this saving trick, being able to break through the team with a very, very unnecessary double crit there, and just removing Espeon so that they are working towards the inevitability of that late game Florges, and then just being able to actually play towards the inevitability of that late game Florges. I mean, we did see this game live commentated by the Goose and the Jordan. But yeah, absolutely just a thing of, okay, we're in Trick Room, but I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. Just absolutely taking advantage of that Trick Room to win with Florges. First, getting that trick off into the Sableye so that it was limited in the decisions it was able to make, and then being able to punish the fact that it was so restricted in its decisions by just getting that double pickup with Florges. Identifying, there's a Pokemon that no longer has its Roselli Berry and is weak to Fairy now, and there's a Pokemon that is at 15%. I can clear both of those. I am slower than Luxray, I am slower than Corviknight, most likely, and I am slower than Baxcalibur, and I'm definitely slower than Iron Valiant, and I have outseen to all of them, because if they, I have Talonflame to punish Terra Fire or Terra Poison, and then I have Terra Fire and Terra Blast to punish Terra Steel from Iron Valiant, and the same conceptually with all of them, as we saw with the Baxcalibur itself.
Yep. And the saying it was slower than the Corviknight, it wasn't slower than Corviknight.
You're right. I
Terra,
keep saying
the
that.
Terra was what saved it, because if it didn't have that Terra to resist Steel, then the Corviknight would have killed it, and then it probably would have been Daddy's game.
I say this wrong. But it was slower than that, and it took that 31% and traded it for the Florges. It was slower than everything but Corviknight and Sableye. I think might not have been slower than Luxray. But Luxray didn't wind up coming. Was this game 1? Yeah, we ended up seeing the Luxray with an offensive set, which I think had some speed on it. Okay, and Goose, after having been one of the coaches along with Foreign, who is kind of maybe a bit of the punching bag for a lot of this video, we get to show Goose doing a good thing. Yay! Would you know from this commentary that Goose made playoffs? I think maybe not.
Same with you pronounced it for, and I thought it was just like FX ran. It never even made the connection of replacing the X with an R.
Oh yeah,
and it being a word.
The acid spray here, just to make so that their Pokemon are you're working towards being DOA. This we see it paying dividends off, where later they're able to bring Funny Apple Acid in on the Pokemon that's actually slower than Sylveon, or speed type Sylveon rather, and take advantage of it with their with that Appleton to preserve the Sylveon, and basically have gotten a setup turn and just sat there on the field with Sylveon the entire time. Only being removed ultimately because of a critical hit, and clean up a game with, again, that whole I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me, which is just always very entertaining to see. Although I think Goose lost this game to memory because of dumb shit tail. No, that's right. This Terra on Iron Moth. This Terra on Iron Moth being the only reason that Iron Moth died, because otherwise it would have resisted Torch Song and lived. Actually, I think Appleton might still win from here, but I remember that Iron Moth dies for no reason. That was maybe a bit of a heartbreaking game, but the identifying, maybe even not necessarily identify, but like seeing, okay, there's Trick Room. Grimmsnarl is actually capable of being slower than. Wait, no, the Ferrotroff is also base 60. I don't know. But getting the funny covert cloak off. This was game 3 after game 1 and 2 with the exact same leads every game, and also switching in Sylveon was a big part of it. Bring that Sylveon in, which was clear Amulet, by the way, to take to not get a special attack dropped by Grimmsnarl. Every game they had kept Cyclozar in and kept Iron Moth in, and then finally this game changing up the offensive play pattern to just get Sylveon in a phenomenal position, take advantage of having conditioned them to set up Trick Room each game, and then getting incredibly close to fully just cleaning it out. And then even with some bad RNG and that one suboptimal Terra play, still being able to clinch it from there. And so now we get to Slushy.
Slushy.
I feel like there are a couple coaches who don't tend to appear on the other side in these games, mostly because they are like a 6-1,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to like remember what the positioning is. So it's about how they capitalized on the game after having a rift. Okay. Bring that Dragonite in, definitely worked out. Seeing Water Veil, okay. Volt Switch doing a very, very juicy 26%. Getting some chip into it. Avalanche did not work out in their favor. That's a Scarf on the Great Tusk. Flower Trick, decent at removing a non-Terra Dozo. Preserving the Great Tusk Scarf. Noting the Icy Wind. Am I going crazy?
What?
How do they? Oh, they Volt Switched. Okay, it's like, how did they switch the rotom out? But no, Volt Switch makes sense. Okay, this helping hand out here is just able to clean the game, right?
Yeah, and that's just what it is. They were able to position well, perfectly to get into that endgame where even though the Weevil that Tagir is being oppressive, they could just go with the Scarf Tusk and kill everything.
Yeah, definitely very, very good at identifying what the outs were in the game. And I think even if Great Tusk had died to that, Draco, Rotom probably would still have been able to survive through and deal with the 16% Draco Ball from that. But I don't know, maybe I had Caxify on that. Great Tusk doesn't have amazing special defense, so but I imagine it was probably also EV to take enough boosted Draco. It definitely seemed like it with how it aided. So then we've got funny T-Tark Garchomp. Okay. Yep, no, that is the right series. Okay, I saw Rotom, I'm like, wait, isn't that the wrong Rotom? Wait, no, that was the other game that had the other Rotom.
Yeah.
Funny T-Tark Garchomp, what do we see here? Is it this turn? We see them just, so they viewed the Scizorus Trivial, and they called that the Steel switching out into Daredevil. We got the Sword Stance off with Garchomp, and then being able to identify your opponent's Pokemon as trivial when you can functionally disregard the moves they play is a big part of getting. Oh my gosh, the double kick into the weakness policy. It's a big part of being able to clear out these interesting endgames. Preserving here.
Oh, sorry, one second.
Okay, well, it's towards the end of the video, so if it is not quite 1 second, I might just finish the video up.
Yeah. Sorry, okay, cool, I'm back.
Okay.
So what's the deal?
I don't know, you submitted this replay.
Oh yeah, I did. Basically just they were able to, what was it? So it was the Terra turn 1, it was turn 1, and they were able to keep the Garchomp alive, through the blizzard, get the sword stance up, which just kept the pressure up for the rest of the game, and
Absolutely.
hopefully,
I mean, you only saw 3 of their Pokemon, and yeah, they just did the funny offensive thing.
yeah. And as James said at the end in chat, I got smoked because he was able Bling, I don't know.
Duo.
I'll just call him Bling. Was able to get that all set
I
up.
get why you don't want to call them BBB. You feel awkward only being BB yourself.
I feel awkward calling them Big Bling Boy.
No, I'm gonna go with you're jealous that they have 3 Bs and you only have 2.
Yeah. You see, so the BB comes from partly is from my initials, which are BB, and my middle name.
Yeah, you've explained it to me before. I'm still going to make fun of it because it's quite funny.
Well, my middle name is Robert, which could be called Bob, so I could also be BBB.
B.
Yeah, we should combine our powers.
You know what? You could make a sequel to that anime.
Oh, I haven't heard of that, but that would be.
I am old.
Would be fun.
Or maybe it's the young people who are wrong.
Yeah, I also don't watch that much anime, so maybe it's that.
Was probably not particularly watched in anime groups. It was just one of those, Saturday morning cartoon style shows. The guy had full power over his head.
Okay.
So ultimately, I think that we had mostly good players, and Daddy, and I think that we saw a lot of different plays working out in very different ways. I don't think we had any.
It was great having.
I don't think we had any double KOs.
Truly interesting plays and players, and that.
And just remember,
we were able to showcase everything.
They were all somewhat special. Do we have any parting words from
Indeed.
Mr. BBRAFF?
I have to leave in 5 minutes, so.
That's cool. I have to leave now.
This is ending perfectly. Timing then. Just
be yourself.